of 2020, I had stopped to get gas when I heard the distinct sound of a Peregrine Falcon. It wasn't a complete shock, as I'd seen peregrines in a couple of spots around town, including my own backyard. But this was different. This was a perfect spot for falcons. A cliff face with lots of crags, a waterfall providing water. It was the perfect place for life to flourish. And I was about to find out just how much life this cliff face contained. Didn't take long to find the falcon, and it didn't take long at all to find the second falcon. I'm recording this video with a 600mm lens, and it wasn't until I got home that I realized one of the falcons was banded. And after only a short period of time, based on their actions, I was quite sure we had a mated pair. This was going to be exciting. Spotting those peregrine falcons that day led to my watching this cliff and the birds that call it home for the next 4 years. There's a number of spots on the cliff where the peregrines have nested. The summer of 2021 was the first year that I witnessed the peregrines nesting, and they raised 3 chicks from this spot. The following year, they moved over to the left side of the cliff. This spot was used in 2022 and 2023, which was really cool, because it was actually like a little cave, a little cubby that they would go into. I learned a lot about peregrine falcons those first couple of years. Peregrines will lay their eggs in scrapes or small depressions in the cliff. They'll kind of scrape that out, which is where the name came from. Peregrine falcons, like most raptors, will mate for life. However, if a member of the pair dies, the surviving falcon will accept a replacement mate, sometimes as soon as a week after its mate dies. Both adults will work together during the incubation period to incubate the eggs. The female does the majority of the incubation. The male primarily is out hunting, feeding his mate, but both of the falcons will take turns incubating eggs. Peregrines will lay anywhere from 3 to 5 eggs at a time, but the female will not start incubating until the last egg has been laid. Even though the male does assist with the incubation chores, he doesn't spend much time in the nest. An occasional chance for mom to spread her wings, but he's not staying long. There's hunting to be done, and he is a very effective hunter. I'm always interested to learn as much as I possibly can about the birds that I photograph. By comparing hours of video and hundreds of images, I was able to finally get the characters off the one banded peregrine's leg. Once I knew that I had clearly identified the band ID, I submitted it to the USGS and learned that this peregrine was a female and had been banded in New York State in 2005. So at this point, that bird was already 17 years old. With a lifespan averaging 13 to 19 years for a peregrine falcon, this girl had been around for quite some time. The male falcon from this pair was not banded, so there was no telling how old he was, what his origin was, where he had come from. But so far, he hadn't been eaten by the female, so he must have been doing something right. In 2022 and 2023, the peregrines decided, for some reason, to move over to the left side of the cliff. Rather than using an exposed scrape, they actually had found an area where there was a cubby, kind of like a little cave, that they could go in and enter into. And I'm sure it gave the ayahs much more protection during the weather. The original scrape was exposed to the elements, and was really kind of a tough spot for the chicks. This is the female again. She's always at the nest site. Glancing from here, it's kind of tough to imagine where they were going. But in the next clip, you'll get a good view and see exactly how they would enter the spot. I mentioned earlier how the peregrines will share nesting duties and incubation duties. At this point, the male has taken off. He's done a circle around the cliff. He comes flying back in, jumps into the scrape area, and the female comes out for a quick break. As if the peregrines weren't enough fun to watch, they're not the only birds that call this cliff face their home. Because of the fact that I discovered the peregrines so late in 2020, I did not even see the ravens. It took me until the second year before I discovered this. But there is another nesting site on this cliff, and it belongs to a raucous pair of ravens. My first year for seeing them was 21. With the boldness of the ravens and the tenacity of the Peregrine Falcons, it certainly provided for some incredible interactions. Common ravens are believed to be among the most intelligent of birds. They'll live 10 to 15 years in the wild. Some ravens in captivity have lived as long as 40 years. They are known to be monogamous, so they will pick a mate and for the most part stay with that mate for life. Common ravens will lay anywhere between 3 and 7 eggs for each one of their clutches. Raven chicks are very, very entertaining to watch. Even the adults, they're very comical birds. They're so intelligent that their idiosyncrasies will just leave you chuckling on a daily basis. And when it comes time for the raven chicks to fledge, oh boy, you will be laughing because they are so entertaining. This clip is from 2024, early in the year, and the first of the ravens has made its way up to the top of the cliff. There's not much flying going on, but boy, there's a whole heck of a lot of hopping happening. There's a branch that extends over the cliff and lays right down in front of the nest, and the chicks this year have figured out that that branch is a great fire escape. Doesn't take long at all before the first adventurous ravenette is joined by a couple of its siblings. These little guys will fledge roughly 35 to 42 days after they've hatched. Once the ravenettes are fully flighted, the family unit sticks together for about 6 months. The adults will use this time to teach the young to hunt and pretty much stay out of trouble. And unfortunately, before long, we have an empty nest. I've noticed over the course of the last couple of years that the ravens leave the area as soon as the chicks fledge. It's typically only a week or so from the time that they leave the nest, make their way up to the cliff, and then before you know it, they're up in the trees at the top of the cliff. I've yet to be able to identify where they go to when they leave this spot, but someday hopefully I'll be able to. As soon as the raven chicks fledge, it's peregrine playground. The peregrines have their run of the place. This is one of the best experiences and memories I have of our banded female. She landed on the ridge right above me about 50 feet away and just sat there in the sun, showed off. I looked at her, she looked at me, and we probably spent about 20 minutes together. And this is where our story takes a bit of a turn of events. I mentioned earlier that I knew that the female peregrine was 19 years old this year, which was right about at the end of her life expectancy. This, even though I thought they were checking out a new nest site for this year, turns out to be the very last time that I saw our girl. I didn't know it at the time, but reviewing photos and video gave me the date, June 23rd, 2024. At 19 years old, I didn't know what happened. Had she had an accident with a vehicle, possibly pushed out of the area by a younger bird? Did she lose a fight with another bird? These are all options, all possibilities, but would I ever know? I doubt it. Having not seen the female for quite a while, I was really being very intent in my search for her. A couple of weeks after she had disappeared, after the last time I had seen her, there was an interesting development. The male peregrine chooses the nest site and then encourages the female to join him. In mid-July of this year, I stopped by to see if I could get some kind of an update on the peregrine. And boy, was I surprised. I looked up at the raven's nest, and what did I see? The male peregrine. But that wasn't all I saw. In this next clip, you'll hear the audio directly from my camera. Something going on, folks, because we have the male in the raven's nest. And this peregrine is not banded. And our female from this nest is banded. It was banded in 2005. Had our original female been replaced? Had this bird driven her out? We had a mystery on our hands. For the next couple of weeks, I watched the male peregrine return to the raven's nest over and over again. He would sit in the nest, call for the female. She would sit 100 feet away, 200 feet away for quite some time. Called back to him, but she wasn't coming to the nest. He couldn't convince her to come to that raven nest. He certainly did not stop trying, so he gets an A for effort. It took him a while to coax her over. After a couple of weeks on a cloudy gray morning, here she came. Will she accept the invitation to nest in the raven's nest? I don't think we'll have an opportunity to find that out until May of next year. The ravens, however, will be ready to nest well before the peregrines are. The ravens typically return in January, work on repairing their nest, and they'll lay their eggs late February or maybe into the first week of March. I'm sensing that there's going to be some very stiff competition for this nest site. Ravens are very territorial birds and will certainly do everything they can to defend their home. I haven't seen much of the ravens from the months of May until usually early January. But today I had a bit of a surprise, and it's just November 3. The two adult ravens were in the nest this morning, poking around, moving a few sticks here and there. I don't know if there's any evidence in the nest from the peregrines visiting that would have given the ravens any indication that anything was amiss. But they stayed for a couple of minutes and went off and circled around the cliff before they headed up over the hill. Over the course of the next couple of months, I'll be visiting regularly at the cliff site. The ravens will be back to their nest on a regular basis starting in mid-February, and we'll see what happens. Will the peregrines take over this nest? Will the new female eat our male? If these two peregrines work out as a pair, they will make for a formidable force on this cliff face. But the question is, will they work out as a pair? Will they challenge the ravens for their nest? Are the ravens ready to defend it against the peregrines? Time will tell. If you have any questions about the peregrines or the ravens, leave me a comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.